And this is ABC News Radio. You're listening to Hoof on the Till right now. My name's Helen Thomas. With me is Max Presnell. And we're going to stick with jockeys, Max, because I'd like to introduce our next guest to you and to our listeners. Frankie Lovato is a jockey with more than 15,000 rides under his belt or under his saddle. And he's also the founder of Jockey World and an interesting little network called Jockey World Radio. And he joins us now from a little town in Ohio. Frankie, welcome to Hoof on the Till.
Thank you for having me on, Helen, and also Max. Thank you.
Okay, now tell us a little about Jockey World Radio and how you came to set it up.
One of the reasons I founded it is I've mentored kids for many years, and just kind of a passion that I've always had. And though sometimes it can be time-consuming, I always try to find creative ways to be able to reach more than one kid at a time, and sometimes, you know, like I would years ago I would get a letter, for example, and it's generally the same question of basically how do I get started, or where can I get started, and what do I do? And so when the internet started to get quite popular, I thought, well, it would be a great idea to maybe start a blog or what we call these groups that you can create on the internet. And well, it just kept growing and growing, and I just kept trying to find ways to manage my time, and that was basically the concept of Jockey World and Jockey World Radio, was a place where a lot of the same questions that come in, and every year that seems like there's just another flow of kids that are looking for information, and generally it's the same stuff. So I created these things that are on the web, and they're accessible for anyone that can get on the web. And that was the birth of Jockey World Radio.
And of course, just taking another step back, Frankie, the reason you're doing that is because you're involved with a young jockeys camp, aren't you?
Well, that's one of the parts of Jockey World. Another thing is, when I do these mentoring things through the internet, it almost becomes a family with some of these kids, and we develop this relationship. But you can only do so much to where you can take it to the next level of being able to work with them hands-on. And so I thought, well, let's all get together, and we'll have an event, and hopefully those that are very interested can make it, and we'll spend basically it's almost like a racing retreat.
Frankie, you're talking about this mentoring or teaching situation. Now, you've got considerable experience in the saddle, I believe.
Yeah, truth be known, I was a 25-year veteran jockey. I was an Eclipse Award-winning apprentice, which is the highest achievement award you can win in America. I accomplished that many years ago, 1980 to be exact. And in total, I've ridden about 15,000 plus races, and just shy of 1,700 winners. I would like to have had 1,800, but you know how that goes. But so yeah, I mean, I've got quite a bit of experience, and I did ride mostly in the major circuits of specifically the New York on the East Coast of America. And
your influence is being felt, or even in Australia now. The equalizer, is this your invention?
It is, yes. The equisizer.
Equisizer.
As a matter of fact, this is back in the late 90s. I was actually building some. I built some for the NSW there in Australia.
It's Racing New South Wales.
Yeah, I was building for many of the top jockeys as well.
Well, firstly, Frankie, could you just explain to our listeners what it is and how it functions?
Well, you know, it's really simple. It's a spring-balanced mechanical horse. It's non-motorized. I hand build them. They're made out of wood and springs and carpet, and you could put them in your living room. They're not oversized. They're made to be as at least as compact as possible, but still with the essentials of a real horse that you can literally simulate riding on. For jockeys, you know that's probably the toughest thing is getting to be able to ride enough races to build the fitness and have the experience and build on your technique, which is constantly you're always working at your form. So that's what the equisizer is. It's a spring-balanced mechanical carpet pony.
You spoke before about seeing videos of Australian racing. Our style is different. It's different to the US style. It's different to the European style. What style or what fashion do you feel, and with your considerable experience, is the best? If you were going to say, well, I want you to be a jockey, you should follow this pattern or that pattern, can you do that?
You know, I certainly have an opinion, but my philosophy is, if it works, then if it works for you, then do it. And you can never knock success. There's many different styles of jockeying, depending on which country that you come from. And a lot of it becomes what they were exposed to. Here in America, we've adapted a style that's it's a little more streamlined. The jockeys are their leg position is much stiller. Their butts are lower to the saddle, and there's more consistency. And that is basically that's the type of style that I would encourage, but I would never take away from any other style. As I say, you can't knock success, and some of the greatest riders in history, whether it's European or South American, Africa, or Australia, New Zealand, Japan, for example, even all these styles have they've kind of created somewhat their own form. I tell you though, the equicizer has been something like, when I created it just over 20 years ago, that many of the riders that use it will start riding similar to the American type style.
We've just had a controversial issue. Our great horse Black Caviar went to Royal Ascot last Saturday, British time, yes. And the jockey Luke Nolan dropped his hands near the finish, won by a nose. What do you tell your pupils as far as riding to the line is concerned?
When I was a kid starting out, the guy that was my mentor, if I didn't ride to the line, he would give me a hard time, to say the least. And in fact, he would insist that I stay past the line a couple of strides to stay down. When I saw it happen, I actually had so much compassion for the jockey. At first, I thought, did he misjudge the finish line, or did he just feel like no one was there? And when she's used to running against maybe 6, 7, 8 horse fields, and this is a 14 horse field, and there are boys and girls that are chasing her all the way down to the line, and that track is wide, and they could sneak up on you in either direction. I think the whole thing just kind of caught him by surprise. But what a professional jockey he is, and she kicked on and she got the job done. My compassion goes out to the jockey, because had she had gotten beat, that would be something that he would have to, it would be on his shoulders for the rest of his life.
Frankie Lovato, you mentioned you having compassion for Luke Nolan, riding Black Caviar at Royal Ascot last weekend. But this week there's been a bit of an outpouring of compassion and concern for one of your great 3-year-olds this year. Was I'll Have Another. Of course, the horse pulled out a rather controversial style from the third race he was aiming for to win the Triple Crown this year. And he's, of course, going to stand at stud in Japan. That's created a bit of a storm in the States, hasn't it? Because many of his fans are worried about what's going to happen to him. And you've actually delved into that issue by talking to someone from Three Chimneys, which was the stud that stands in Kentucky, stands his sire, Flower Alley.
Correct, yes, Flower Alley. And I think it was just an emotional bit of news that hit America. We've been longing for us true fans and new fans, and there was a great story behind the horse and the jockey, and there was just a lot of emotion that stood behind this situation. And he literally scratched just before the Belmont is to be run, and people were just devastated. They were just hoping that this was going to be the first Triple Crown in 32 years, and so there was a lot of emotion. But where everybody kind of felt peace is, okay, he's going to go on to stud and make babies, and we get to watch his babies, and then boom, we get hit with, he's going to be he was sold to Japan, he's going to stand at stud there. And I think that just a lot of people took it emotionally. It was just a bit of a bad taste in their mouth, and people are still trying to get over what happened with Ferdinand, and Jen Reutz from Three Chimneys really explained it well, and really helped a lot of people I myself, I understand that there's compassion. There's a lot of compassion in this industry, but it's also a business.
Well, it's certainly an interesting interview that you've got up at the moment. It's your current interview on jockeyworldradio.com, and the rep from Three Chimneys makes it very clear that there'll be an American representative actually going to Japan to check on his well-being and welfare, won't there, every year?
Yeah, there's a whole new protocol that's involved with any of these great sires that are going in. It doesn't matter whether it's Japan or any country. I mean, there's many sires that move about throughout our world from one place to another. But with something with the connections and the emphasis of this horse being that he was our Kentucky Derby winner and Preakness winner, and people they thought for sure that he was gonna win the Triple Crown. Until they came up with this little this tendonitis deal. So I think that this horse will be in great hands and be under a microscope, regardless whether it was Japan, wherever he would go.
Frankie, it's been a delight talking to you today.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you, Helen. Max, it was a great pleasure. And then hello to everybody in Australia from here in Ohio, America.
And if you want to have a look at Frankie's work, you just go to Jockey World Radio or Jockey World itself. Frankie, again, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Helen.
And that's it for another week of the program. Hope you've enjoyed it and will join us again for more on ABC News Radio and ABC Grandstand Digital.